Hey everyone, and welcome back to another DIY light fixture demonstration. I'm not sure if anyone has done this before, but I will show you how to make a cheap and effective light fixture using mainly PVC pipes. This is a good solution for various enclosure types, plus it gives you the freedom to use whatever type of bulb you want. To begin, I will show you a few sketches of different designs that could be used to create such a light fixture. I chose this particular design because it uses the least amount of materials. That said, the amount of materials needed is based on this particular design and what I make in this demonstration. Here are the materials that you will need for this project: 1-inch PVC pipe, 2 PVC tees, 5 PVC elbows, 2 PVC caps, 2 pendant light fixtures, 2 plastic planters, spray paint, and optionally PVC cement. Initially that might seem like a lot of materials, but overall it's relatively inexpensive. I want to mention one more thing before we get into this build. You can cut the PVC using a saw like I used to, or get some of these nifty PVC cutters. Someone suggested this to me about a month ago, and I have to say, it makes working with PVC so much easier. It cost me a whole $12 and saved me a lot of time in the long run. You can always get more money, but you can never get more time, so maximizing our time is a must. So here are all of the components laid out in a dissected manner. This will become the top of the fixture simply by dry fitting all of the pieces together. You can use PVC cement if you want a more permanent fixture. Anyways, for this part you will need 3 PVC elbows, 1 PVC tee, 4 pieces of PVC pipe, and your pendant light fixtures. These pipes will determine the width of the fixture. Simply calculate how wide you want it to be and remove about 3 inches. This will compensate for the length that the tees and elbow will add to the overall width. This pipe will dictate the placement of the light above the tank. Measure from the back of your tank and then subtract about an inch from your measurement. I made mine centered above the tank. Finally, this pipe will dictate the overall height of the fixture itself. Get one of your pendant light fixtures and hold it above the tank until the coverage looks good. Then use a tape measure and measure the distance from the ground. Like before, subtract about 2 inches from this measurement and then cut a piece of PVC to size. Now that these pieces make sense, let's put the top together. Begin by feeding the cord through the PVC elbows. Pull the cords all the way through and then feed them through these pipes. Then press the pieces firmly together. This next part is probably the hardest part of the whole build. Basically, we have to feed both of the cords through this tee. I found that it's easiest to completely feed one cord through and then put the second one through with the big prong first. Don't try forcing these in place. It's more or less a puzzle, you just have to find the right fit. Once you do, it will easily fit through the opening. After you get both cords into the tee, pull the entire length through and then push the pieces together. Now, feed the cords through this smaller pipe and once more press the pieces firmly together. Now turn the elbows so that they point downward like this. To complete the top part of this fixture, feed both of the cords through another elbow and connect the pieces together. After doing so, you should end up with something that looks a little like this. Next, we will feed the cords down through the main posts. If you just try to stuff these into the PVC pipe, it's not going to work. You can only get them down about halfway before they get jammed. Luckily, there's an easy way around it. You could feed a wire or a piece of string all the way through the pipe, leaving some exposed on either end. Then attach your cords to this string or wire and pull it all the way through on the opposite end. In my case, I'm using some copper wire with the cords taped on my end. Then I got someone to pull it through on the other end. Once the cords are completely through this pipe, press the pieces firmly together. Now let's move on to the bottom of the fixture. For starters, I have a tee that I drilled a hole into. I'll feed the cords out through this hole. If you don't want to or can't drill a hole like this, I will show you an alternative shortly. These pipes here will dictate the width of the base of the fixture. I suggest measuring and cutting a single pipe to around the same width of your stand and then cut this piece in half. Then you will need 2 elbows or 1 elbow and a tee. If you replace one of the elbows with the tee, you can skip drilling a hole in the tee from a little bit ago. I'll explain more about this in a second. Next, these two pipes will support the fixture from tipping forward. There's no particular size that is best for these, but I suggest cutting them short enough that they aren't noticeable, but longer than this pipe on top. Finally, you'll need two PVC caps to conceal the openings of these pipes. After you have all of these components, put them together like so. Let me pause real quick and say that you could fill these two sections with gravel or sand, for example, to weigh down the fixture and add additional stability. To complete the PVC portion of this build, put the legs on as seen here. Note that if you wanted to use the other T, it would go here or here. Now we can move on to the planters. These will act as lampshades that concentrate the light down into the enclosure. Basically, you just have to find some way to get a hole in it. You could use a step drill bit like this, a spade bit like you've seen me use in the past, and so on. When drilling your hole, just make sure that it's slightly smaller than the diameter of the socket of your pendant light fixture. Doing so will keep the planter snugly onto the light fixture. Now we have to go outside and paint this thing. We will start with the planters. You can use white or metallic spray paint on the inside to better reflect the light down into the tank. If you find that the paint isn't sticking very well, try sanding the plastic first with some fine grit sandpaper. You may have to do several coats to get an even coating. Further, you may splash paint on the outside or want to paint them a different color. Finally, we will paint the main fixture. Before you start painting, make sure to cover up the light sockets. You could paint this any color you want, but I chose matte black. Matte black works with my overall aesthetic, and I think it looks nice. I was able to get away with a single coat of paint on this, but it may vary depending on the type of paint used. Now let this dry. At this point we are basically done. All that we have to do now is remove these bags and attach our planters. Next we can put in our light bulbs. The beauty of this fixture is that you can choose whatever lights you want. I'm using some 60 watt equivalent LED bulbs. These seem to grow plants pretty well for me, and I had them laying around already because I bought them in bulk. So from bottom to top you should end up with something that looks like this. I think it looks pretty strong, especially considering what it's made of, and how cheap it was to make. Also, it only took me about a half hour to build. Additionally, it lends itself for good cord management, which is something I always take into account. I don't have the luxury to hang pendant lights from the ceiling, so this is what I came up with. When all is said and done, it should fit snugly around the stand like so. Now let's test it out. I think this looks pretty good. Here's another example of a larger one that I made for my goldfish tank. I had to use slightly different materials, but it's the same style of construction. As I said before, you could use PVC cement to hold this all together, but dry fitting should work fine for small fixtures like these. Plus, dry fitting makes it easier to adjust if need be. With little creativity, you could alter this design however you see fit. That's all I got for this demonstration. Stay tuned for more DIY lighting solutions.